Just to start off, I just wanted to give a quick sort of insight into the life of after football. How's the knee?
Knee's good. Had it replaced, had a half replacement about just over a year ago now, and it's still stiff at times, but generally going from probably 85-90% bad, it's probably about 10% bad now. So yeah, it's not stopping me doing anything basically, so it's all good.
All good, all good. And so yeah, I just wanted to start at the start with your childhood. What were you like at school?
At school, generally I used to be in most of the top classes in the juniors, and then moving up to the seniors, it was sort of, I didn't really feel that I was interested in much at school other than the sport. Played all the sports I could at school, and most of the homework I got, I never used to do it, which is, I mean, looking back now, I've got friends who were like in the bottom classes, and they're like set up for life now with different businesses through not being too academical at school, to put it that way.
And did you? I guess we all sort of did, but did you have that dream of being a footballer when you were a kid?
I mean, I think every kid who's playing football, who's into football, dreams about being a professional. I sort of had them sort of beliefs that I could do it, but it was just to have that chance to be able to have a go at it, if you like.
So yeah, you were signed at 24 professionally, and that, especially nowadays, that's considered quite late. Did you, as you say, you wanted to, you were obviously chasing it, to put it sort of bluntly. Did you feel like time was running out?
Definitely, I thought my time was over. Really, I mean, I played for all the Pompey schools teams when I was younger, and I knew that I could make it. It was just being given a chance, and then went on and played non-league football for a couple of years, which went really well, to be fair. I was always scoring goals, and then that sort of led me on to getting a trial at Southampton.
And there you go, that leads me on to my next question quite perfectly. Being a Portsmouth fan myself, and with us both living in Portsmouth, having done our whole lives, why did you pick Southampton over Portsmouth? As such, you did have a trial at Portsmouth,
well,
and how did that go?
Yeah, to be fair, obviously I wanted to play for Pompey because my own hometown club. I had a game for them in the youth team. Played against Chelsea, I scored a goal, lost 3-1. And I remember not even being contacted by the club after the game to say, okay, yeah, you done okay, or whatever, maybe come back, but didn't hear anything again. Not even a phone call. So bit sort of disillusioned by that. But no, the fact that it was Southampton didn't make any difference to me. It was just a chance of playing pro football.
Were you ever affected by where you played, sort of geographically? I know you played in London. Did that affect you in any way? Or was it more of a case of, this is my job, this is what I'm paid to do, let's do the best I can wherever I'm at?
Well, that's exactly it. I just thought, give me that chance, whoever it was for. And yeah, give it 100% every day in training, every game I played. But it was the case of being a Pompey lad playing for Southampton was a little bit awkward because I still lived in Portsmouth, and going out in the pubs and whatever around Portsmouth wasn't really a good idea. So I did get a stick on numerous occasions.
A couple of quick fire questions. Best player you played with?
There's a few, to be honest. I mean, when I went to Southampton, you had the likes of Matt Letizia there, Alan Shearer. And then when I joined Fulham later on in my career, we had people like Peter Beardsley playing. I'd say Peter Beardsley and Letizia equally, for different reasons. They were brilliant players.
And against?
Against probably there's a couple as well. Tony Adams, Arsenal, ex-Arsenal, and remember for Fulham we played Tottenham in the FA Cup at Tottenham, and was being marked by Sol Campbell, and at the time he was on top of his game, playing for England, and he was just quick, strong, and a good player. So yeah, I'd probably say he was the hardest player I played against, the toughest.
Like you say, the big Arsenal team at the time, obviously a whole lot of very decent teams in the 90s at that time. Obviously you got the 99 team of Man United, late 90s. If you could have chose a team from around that sort of time and put yourself in that team, where would you go? Where would you play?
I think Man United. I always had a little soft spot for Man United, still do. Well, they're not doing as well at the moment, obviously, but at the time they played some really good football, and to be given a chance to play for them would have been amazing.
So you signed your pro contract 94? 91. And what did you do with your first professional paycheck? How did you spend it?
I don't know really, because I was working at the time. Well, prior to signing professional, I was working. I think I was doing lagging and insulation at the time, and with my non-league money as well, what Southampton were paying me was probably the same as what I was earning non-league football and working as well. So it wasn't as if I was getting a massive paycheck that I was going to go out and spend some money. I think I did end up buying a decent car at the time. I think it was a Ford Escort, because I needed something reliable, obviously, to get to the game. One a brand new one, that was a second-hand one, but it done a job.
What about the 3 bags of sand? That story, what happened there?
That was at Fulham. We last game of the season, I think we'd already won the league. No, sorry, we got promoted, but we needed to win the last game at home to Preston to actually be confirmed as champions. And Kevin Keegan was the manager at the time, and on the Friday before the game, the chairman, Mohammed Al Fayed, got the whole club in there, the youth players and all the whole squad, whatever, and to tell us that Kevin Keegan was going to be announced as the England manager over that weekend. No one knew about it, so and then he said, so tomorrow's game against Preston, he said, however many goals you score, each player will get £1,000. So obviously you've got 1-2-0, every player will get £2,000. So we went on. I was sub for the game, and 0-0 at half time. And Keegan said, "Stay out at half time, get yourself warmed up. You're coming on." And literally come on and scored a hat trick. So obviously all the lads were made up that I'd got on the money. So yeah, it was an exciting day.
And you mentioned just briefly about Alan Shearer, for example, one of the world-class players that you played with, Tim Cahill as well at Millwall.
Yeah.
And then Sean Dyche going on to be a successful manager. With players like Shearer and Cahill, did you notice that they had anything particular that sort of set them apart, as it were? Did you have any sort of feeling that they were going to go on to be the sort of world-class players that they did?
Well, I mean, both of them, to be fair, didn't really have a lot of skill, but they just done their job really well. I mean, Shearer, in training he didn't used to work that hard, to be fair, but come to matches he was always on the ball and just knew where to be, could hold the ball up really well. The same with Tim Cahill. I mean, he wasn't that tall, to be fair, probably about 5'8", 5'10", yeah. But his timing of balls into the box for crosses and that, he used to get a lot of headers. But for his size, it was unusual. But it was all about time, and he'd make late runs into the box. and he was super fit up and down the pitch. And again, he just done the simple things easy, made him look easy.
So the main sort of takeaway from those types of players, those types of people, is their mindset, really, from what I'm getting from that. And another player that's gone into management, Sean Dyche, defender at Millwall, whilst you were there. What was he like as a person, as a player?
Yeah, good. He was a leader. He wasn't captain at the time, because I think Stuart Nethercott was a captain at Millwall at the time. And but I used to stay around his flat on a Friday before some games, and he was, let's just say, you could sort of see that he'd make a good manager. Not that anyone thought that he'd go into management, but we actually put down for our to do our UEFA B licences at the same time at the end of the season, but I ended up not doing mine. So I was sort of personal problems, going through a divorce and whatever, so I ended up not doing it. I don't think I'd have been cut out for being a manager. I think I could have done the manager's job, but it's all the hours and that will go with it. So, but now, to be fair, Sean Dyche done brilliant. I mean, he'll always get a job now in management, whether it be the Premier or lower down the leagues. So no, he's done well.
My nan, your mum, has a big collection of your photos and all sorts of newspaper articles over your career, and we've went through a couple of those. There's a lovely picture there that we saw earlier of the Huddersfield Stadium. Can you tell me much about that game?
Yeah, I remember it quite well. We drew 3-3 in the end, and us and Huddersfield were the top two teams at the time. We were both sort of in the top 3 or 4 for most of the season, so we knew it was a big game. I think that was early stages of of that season, and I think it was their first game at their ground, the first sort of home game they play there. It was a fantastic stadium, and I remember taking it past the goalie, literally only had to tap it in and he brought me down, so penalty. And just remember it was pouring out of rain, so it was quite sort of slippery out there, but I just remember just get a good strike on it, which I did. It went top corner.
You mentioned about, sort of briefly there, about your sort of penalty technique, and yeah, just what used to go through your head when you'd put the ball down? And
well, I always used to focus on hitting a spot between the goalkeeper and the post, and just smashing it as hard as I could. I mean, half the time I didn't know where the ball was going to go, so the keeper had no chance, basically. Well, I think the only 2 times I think I changed my mind when the other teams had a big goalie in, and I've placed them both and the keeper saved them both, so I should have stuck to what I knew best. But obviously in them games you think, yeah, try something different, but it didn't work out, so no, I went back to blasting it.
you say about there trying something different, and you managed to score a load of decent goals just through sort of quick thinking. And I'll find the clip, I'll overlay the particular goal that I'm thinking of. Excuse me, I can't remember exactly. Bradford. And yeah, you've got the ball, the ball's come to you, and you've just sort of turned and just smashed it from 25 yards, edge of the box sort of area, kind of like Drogba-esque, from, if we're going back to sort of my generation a few years later. That's how you managed to score your goals and that. Do you watch football now and sort of I wish there was more of that in there, like why has this died down? Definitely. Kind of thing?
Definitely. I mean, if you were talking about today's football, if that had happened then, I'd have been encouraged to hold the ball up and pass it back or pass it wide. I just used to do unorthodox things, which I probably learnt playing non-league football. And a lot of the time, the keeper weren't ready, they don't set their feet. And I just think a lot of the time you shoot early, you catch the goalie off guard. And I really think that nowadays they overplay the ball when they've got chances to shoot. Whereas they'll pass, and then that shooting chance is gone. So now I'd like to see a lot more of players just instinctively, half a chance, smash it as hard as you can at the target. You've got a 50-50 whether it's going to go in or not.
So by today's standards, Where do you reckon you'd fit in, given a sort of formation? I guess you played the standard sort of 4-4-2, especially with like players like Neil Harris at Millwall, big lad, little lad up front kind of thing. Where do you think in this game you'd fit in, formation-wise?
Christ knows. I mean, I watch the games now and they talk about a false 9 and a false 10. I mean, I don't even understand what that is, to be honest. And basically, as you're saying, most English teams would play a 4-4-2 because and most of the players were English players then. And they knew their jobs, what they had to do: left back, right back, midfielder, 2 midfielders, and then a right midfielder, left midfielder, which was sort of wingers, and then 2 up front. And it was basic, but it was effective. And then all of a sudden they started bringing in wing backs, which sort of confused a lot of the English players, and that's why they struggled to come to terms with it. But I mean, now you've got a lot more foreign players in the game, and they're playing different systems, which, okay, it's good, but if you're a good team, you've got to be able to have about 3 or 4 different systems up your sleeve to be able to change during games at the right time when you need to change, and change different players to go in their position. So no, I'd rather stick to the 4-4-2, although it can be found out and teams have learned to play against that system. So yeah, it's getting a bit more technical now, the football.
So you're glad you're glad that you had the career that you had when you had it.
Yeah, definitely.
Sort of thing,
I knew where I was with the 4-4-2. I mean, to say that nowadays it's sometimes they play 1 up front or
3-4-1-2,
yeah,
3-4-3, Pep Guardiola and all of this.
Exactly.
Most people say sort of ruining the game, and it's all about XG and numbers and this and that and chances created and
That's
stuff.
right.
And
I mean, at the end of the day, it's goals that
goals in the games, yeah.
But I think you are going to get changes in the way the game's played. Obviously, teams trying to better themselves and work out how to break down tough defences. But no, I always remember when I was at Millwall, Ray Harford was a coach, and he used to watch a lot of the European football, and basically he said, get the ball out wide. And we used to do a lot of sessions like 2-on-1, out wide, right by the corner flag, and get crosses in, because I think he said something about 80-90% of goals are scored from crosses, which teams don't tend to do now. You don't get wingers who go by players and cross the ball in, but when they do, when you put the ball in the box, that's where the goal is. So percentages for me, more times you get the ball in the box, the more goals you're going to score.
And back to the news article we've just had a look at there as well, mentioning about the arrival of me and my brother Ty, which you could say maybe that's maybe me and Ty, maybe we ruined it all for you, but not to try and bring the mood down, but with that news article, can you shed a bit more light on that and what was going through your head?
It was a difficult time. I mean, I was top scorer in the country out of all the 4 leagues. I had 19 goals up to something like 17th of November, which is, if I'd have carried that on, I'd probably got 50 goals that season.
That's like Erling Haaland form in today's
that's right.
sort of.
And I just felt every game I played, every time I went forward, I was going to score. I was playing alongside John Byrne up front, who was a brilliant stroke partner, probably the best I've played with, as in hitting it off, him and Neil Harris.
Teamwork.
But yeah, going back to them times, and then I think I got sent off just before Christmas against Cardiff at home, and ended up missing a few 3 games over Christmas, I think it was.
Was that the game you were kicked?
Yeah, I was sent off for basically
ball.
Nothing, getting kicked to death.
VAR back in those days,
scary.
it would have been fascinating to see,
But no, wife at the time went into labour. I think it was probably something like the 4th of January. And Portsmouth had no beds, which was where we were living at the time, in the hospitals there, so we ended up having to drive up to Basingstoke. So she was in there for a couple of nights. We didn't really know what was going on, and then they were trying to delay delay the birth because they're obviously about 10 weeks early. However, on the 6th, I got a phone call because I was basically driving from Portsmouth to Basingstoke, then Basingstoke to Oxford to train, and then doing the same in reverse. Literally getting home in the evening, 7 o'clock, having something to eat, shower, bed, then doing the same again. And then the boys were born on the 6th. 10 weeks premature. Jake was weighing in £2.8 and Ty 2.7. So obviously very, very small. And doctors came in and said literally 70% chance they're not going to make it. And 70% chance if they do, they might have health problems, mental problems and whatever later down the line. So that didn't really sink in at the time, but after sort of a couple of weeks thinking about it, and then you went into hospital with a bleed on the brain, which was horrendous. Being in hospital, seeing that, having your head cut open, literally at a couple of weeks old, having tubes down your throat and down in your head and stuff. So no, it was a horrendous time. I don't really know. I got through it, to be fair. But you find a strength from somewhere. But that's when my form started to dip for the team. Obviously, I didn't remember this, but reading the article, which my mum had saved from one of the papers, it said that Dennis Smith kept it back from the supporters, exactly what was going on. And to be fair, he was brilliant at the time. He sort of said to me if he didn't want to play, if he didn't feel up to playing, which I didn't because my head was elsewhere. Obviously worrying about whether the boys were going to survive and whatever. So yeah, it was a horrendous time. As I say, my football sort of took a back seat at that time.
It's fascinating to hear about it all, because especially from a viewing point of view, you don't watch it on TV in the stands, whatever. You don't see that at all. And just to let you behind the curtain, sort of thing, and obviously knowing that myself, watching Salah just step up to take a penalty, and just looking at him, you think, oh, he doesn't look right. Like his eyes look a little bit. But anyway, he went on to score the penalty anyway. But you think maybe is that another case of someone got something going on?
That's the thing. The fans don't see what's going on in players' private lives, and obviously there are no phones or pictures being taken of people going out and doing stuff, whatever. So it's totally different back in them days. A bit more private, which was, I think, it was a lot better. But now, I mean, I think that period of time changed my sort of outlook on the game. I mean, I wasn't interested at the time, to be fair. I was just more interested that the kids were going to come out of their problems, come out of hospital safe and well, which they did eventually. But the energy it took me to mentally to go through all that, it did affect the form.
2-3 years after that, you've told me sort of as soon as you hit 30, you happen to obviously your body slows down. As you were losing pace and your body's slowing down, did you feel like you had to adapt your game? Did you have to sort of change as you were as a player?
Definitely. I mean, I felt that sort of when I joined Fulham, and I think I must have been 28, 29 then. But yeah, I did feel that I'd lost a bit of pace. As you say, you have to sort of adapt your game differently then. Whereas I was used to sort of running in behind, because I was quite quick back in the day, sort of pulling the defenders out wide. But now it's a case of holding the ball up, getting it into feet a bit more, which luckily enough I did. Had the players around me to sort of do the job I was doing, like running in behind. So no, it was a transitional period in playing. I think a lot of players do go through that, but it's just adjusting to it.
Let's bring the mood up a little bit. If you, I'm going to ask you if you've got any stories from sort of back in the day. Briefly remember you mentioning one about some fans in the changing room at Millwall.
We were talking about this the other night when I watched the Pompey Millwall game. Talking to a few Millwall fans, and basically it was my first game for Millwall, and we were Cardiff away, and the game ended 1-1. But during the game, you could see the fans fighting in the crowd while the game was going on, and then after the game, where I was probably one of the older ones there, I had to take the warm down, and literally you come in after the game, have a little chat, and then go out and have a 10-minute walk down, a few stretches and sort of loosen it up. So anyway, we've gone back out through the tunnel, and in the tunnel there was probably 20-25 Millwall fans in there, getting bricks chucked at them, and seats, the Cardiff fans were ripping up the seats, chucking them at them, and the stewards closed the doors. They were about 10 feet high doors, massive doors, going out into the players' tunnel onto the pitch, and me and Tony Waller, the keeper, pushed the doors back open and got all the fans inside, and they ended up coming in our dressing room. Well, it was bad, you didn't see nothing like it. There was players in the bath and getting showered, and there was just random fans in there. There was mums with their kids in there. And it was something I'd never seen before. I thought, oh, this is Millwall, you know. So, no, it was interesting.
Again, I guess another thing that made you so grateful that it was back then and not, because you just know that they would have been camera phones and they would have been recording, and anything could have ended up online and stuff like that. So I can imagine you're very grateful to be in the to have grown up, lived and played in the era that you did.
Definitely, I think, yeah, as you say, there'd have been people in their change rooms with phones and taking pictures of videos. So yeah, scary, but it was an adventure.
It's fascinating to see it now from my point of view, looking at all the sort of stuff as from football players and in the changing rooms. It is good, but as you say, you're very, very glad that it was a lot more private for you. In the 12 years that you were a player, is there anything that you've learnt during that time that you've taken into life after football?
Phew, that's a tricky question. That was a tricky question, yeah. I don't know. You get out what you put in, basically. I'd say that's probably the best thing I've learned. And that's why I used to train so hard every day, and every game, just give 100%, 110%. And obviously odd days you'd have where you're feeling a bit tired or whatever, and you can't do nothing about that other than just try and do your best. But now I'd definitely say what you put in is what you get out. I mean, things have sort of changed now. I'm just happy to go to work painting and just earn enough money just to pay the bills and have holiday once or twice a year. So yeah, I think the older you get, I'm 57 now, so you sort of lose a bit of energy and enthusiasm for working. And you start sort of looking at retirement, if I ever can retire. But yeah, so now I'd say that's the main thing I learned.
All right, so for 12 years, Paul Moody was a professional footballer. Who's Paul Moody today?
Well, I've sort of gone full circle really, because I was doing all sorts of different manual work in the building trade. I've done all sorts of jobs. This is when I was, before I was 24. I mean, I started off in a paint factory, mixing up paint for cars. Then I ended up doing groundworks, digging holes, laying curbs, and then tarmacking, window fitting, done that, roofing. Done that, so painting, decorating, insulating, loft insulation and that sort of stuff. So yeah, I've done more or less most jobs, which is still be in good stead now, because anything on my house I can do it myself. And basically that's what I'm doing now. I've got my own business, just work on my own, painting and decorating, and always get work. So I can't moan.
There we go. I think that's a nice way to end it. And yeah,
Cheers,
right.
Jake. Cheers.
Cheers for that. Thank you for spending time with Dad. Nice one.
Dear, something different, yeah. That was alright, wasn't it?
Happy days.
Yeah, it's funny because like the Oxford guy, he remembers going to games and watching. So he would ask me different specific questions about, oh, do you remember this goal? And half the time I don't remember stuff unless you see it, you know.
Yeah.
But no, it is interesting. Millwall the other night was went in the pub, good companion where all the Millwall fans were.
I can't.
And there's must
I
have been 200 or 300.
But
In there.
crazy.
And
majority of them, did they recognise you?
well, it's funny because
I suppose it's the older guys that are going to recognise you, aren't they?
I recognise an old boy who's a friend of mine on Facebook, never met him before, a Millwall fan, and I went up to him, I said, I can't remember his name now, Jim. And I said, oh, Jim, and he's gone, oh, Paul Moody, how you doing, and all this. Then
a few heads turned, did they?
Later on, he took me round the whole pub, and he was introduced with me, because he knew everyone in there, and he was introduced me. There was a couple of Polish lads in there with the old Giorgio top. Remember the white Giorgio top?
Oh yeah, nice.
And had a chat and a photo with them. Then a couple of them come over and we were talking and that. And then went up to the game and it was just like, man.